Hello there everyone, this is Mr. Brass, and today I will be talking about Galilean medical practices and the challenges it faced. Often it is assumed that there weren't a whole lot of challenges to the Galilean medical practices due to its long-standing use. This isn't true, as there were doctors that challenged the Galen treatments of the time. For one, Theophrastus Bombastus von Hannam, or Paracelsus for short, was a 16th century Swiss physician who was known for using alchemy for his medical practices. He criticized the Galenic medical treatment and suggested the use of drugs he devised as better, as he believed that illnesses was caused by individual diseases. But the problem is, since this is early on treatment with drugs, he had no idea what might work for said illnesses, and he and his followers would prescribe mercury a lot of times, which was a deadly poison. He'd have some success as a healer because Galen medicine was that bad. Paracelsus didn't have the best reputation, as he was labeled a drunk and a troublemaker for his actions. He once burned an important medical book in the public square. He wasn't a precursor to modern medicine, as his work was imbued with theological speculation and only objected to Galen on grounds that it was pagan. He also subscribed to the doctrine of signatures, as we talked about before, so he was wrong on that front as well. It wasn't really until after his death in 1541 that his books got published and a new school of medicine came out based on him. The Paracelsian medicines would go toe-to-toe with the Galenists, and eventually Galenists would win, and Paracelsian medicines were banned at the University of Paris in 1615. Surgeons back in the Middle Ages were looked down upon as they used their hands, and they challenged Greek thought on healing. Greeks believed letting the wound rot was necessary for healing, while people in the 13th century believed that cleaning the wound with wine, drying, and binding was the best method. What would also challenge the Galenic medical practices is the introduction of human dissection. Contrary to popular opinion, the church had no problem with human dissection during the Middle Ages. In fact, Pope Innocent III had ordered the procedure to happen for a murder victim. By the 13th century, Italy started doing human dissections, which would come about and would challenge Galen's work by showing his mistakes. The first dissections could have been done for legal reasons, and over time it became done for medical purposes. While it was allowed, it typically was only done for teaching purposes and not for research. Bologna's physician Madino di Lazusius' manual on human dissection became part of the course for carrying them out. It was considered taboo in most cultures at the time to cut open bodies, as it was deemed disgraceful to the dead. Really, the only examples in ancient time we can find being this human dissection being explored was in Alexandria in the 3rd century BC, which could be because they had already had to remove organs anyway from mummification. The dissection of human bodies was forbidden by pagan Roman authorities, which meant Galen himself had to use his work on animals, which caused problems because he assumed animal physiology was the same as ours. There were also great physicians of the 16th century. Andreas Berzelius is considered one of the pioneers of anatomy. He was the 16th century famous physician, best known for how he could do dissections himself, and his work would be written on it. Funny enough, he didn't do his work to debunk Galen, but to simply perfect it, as he seen Galen as just being limited by animals. His work on the fabric of the human body was a massive success. It isn't perfect by any stretch of the imagination, as it was sexist, as it just seen a woman's reproductive parts as just an inverted penis waiting for a man to thrust into it. Even the word vagina has sexist origins, as it is Latin for sword sheath, aka the thing you put your sword into. Basilius would also grave rob due to the shortage of bodies, and would kill a prisoner so he could operate on his body. He would get a job with the king, and eventually Basilius left Padilla and was employed by King Philip II, and as a personal physician would not like the job as he couldn't operate on dead bodies anymore, and decided to seek an escape by going on a pilgrimage to Jerusalem, which would result in his death as the boat sank on its return journey. Last off, we have William Harvey, who was a 16th century physician, best known for describing in detail and describing the systematic circulation of the brain and body. He got his education at Cambridge University and attended Caius College. He would do his research at home by performing operations on live dogs, and would help him gain insight into how the heart worked. He thought of the heart as operating like a machine. Harvey was a devoutly religious man who wanted to find out what the heart had been created to do. Our understanding of the heart is still based on Harvey's work. However, people still did Galen practices even though they were being challenged because there was no alternative, and Harvey's work didn't lead to an immediate effectual clinical practices, so they just simply stuck with what they had. Well, that is all for today. This is Mr. Brass saying goodbye and get wise.